The email arrived at 6:12 a.m. It was short, carefully worded, and copied to 3 people who didn't need to be involved. By the time the workday ended, one boundary had turned into a performance review, a schedule change, and a conversation with HR. The question before Internet Court today is simple, but uncomfortable. Was enforcing a professional boundary justified, or did it invite consequences that could have been avoided? Internet Court is now in session. Jurors, today's case is not about yelling. It's not about revenge. And it's not about a single explosive moment. It's about quiet pressure, unspoken expectations, and what happens when someone finally enforces a boundary at work, and everything that follows feels like punishment. This is a workplace retaliation case, and Reddit could not agree on whether the decision was brave or self-destructive. The employee at the center of this story, let's call her Maya, worked at a mid-sized corporate office. Not glamorous, not toxic on the surface, just quietly demanding. She'd been there for almost 4 years, long enough to know the systems, long enough to be dependable, long enough to become the person people asked when they didn't want to ask their manager. Maya's role was technically defined. Her job description listed specific responsibilities, clear hours, clear reporting structure. But over time, her day-to-day reality drifted. It started small. A coworker asked if she could quickly review something after hours. A supervisor asked if she could just jump on a late call since she was already familiar with the project. Maya said yes. She always said yes, not because she loved it, but because she didn't want to seem difficult. At first, the extra effort felt invisible. Then it felt expected. She noticed patterns, emails sent late at night, addressed only to her, tasks assigned verbally so there was no record, deadlines that assumed she'd work past her scheduled hours. None of it was overtly abusive. That made it harder to name. At home, she felt constantly on. Phone buzzing, laptop open, mind racing. But at work, everything looked fine. Performance reviews were positive. No complaints, no warnings. Which made her wonder, if she pushed back, would she be the problem? Pressure built quietly. Micro Event 1. A new project launched, and Maya was added, without discussion, to a weekend timeline. She noticed it late Friday afternoon. No one asked if she was available. The assumption was already baked in. She hesitated, typed a response, deleted it, and worked the weekend. Micro Event 2. A coworker began delegating tasks to her that technically weren't hers. When Maya asked for clarification, the coworker smiled and said, "You're just better at this stuff." It sounded like a compliment. It felt like a trap. Micro Event 3. Her manager started framing requests as emergencies. Everything was urgent. Everything was time-sensitive. But when Maya looked closer, she realized most of it could wait. She started feeling a familiar tension before opening her inbox. Not fear, not anger, just exhaustion. There were moments she almost spoke up. Once during a meeting, her manager casually mentioned that Maya was always flexible. Maya felt the urge to correct that. She didn't. Another time, she drafted an email setting clearer hours. She reread it, imagined the reactions, and saved it as a draft. The escalation wasn't loud. It was cumulative. Until one afternoon, something shifted. The request came during lunch. A message popped up asking Maya to take on an additional responsibility, one that belonged to another department. No explanation. No discussion, just an assumption. Maya stared at the screen. For the first time, she felt something sharper than fatigue, resentment. She thought about her evenings disappearing, her weekends shrinking, her role expanding without recognition, and she realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't temporary. This was the job now, unless she said no. So she did something she'd never done before. She replied politely, professionally, and firmly. She wrote that the task fell outside her role, that she was happy to discuss priorities, but couldn't take it on as assigned. She read it twice, then sent it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the tone changed. When Maya later posted the story to Reddit, reactions came fast. One commenter wrote, "This is exactly how burnout happens. You enforced a boundary that should have existed all along." Another pushed back. "You waited 4 years to say no. Of course management reacted badly. You trained them to expect yes." A third took a middle ground. "You weren't wrong, but timing matters. Once you're seen as the flexible one, boundaries feel like rebellion." Reddit split early. Some saw courage, others saw miscalculation. The jury wasn't settled. The fallout didn't arrive as a confrontation. It arrived as process. Maya noticed her workload shift. Projects she enjoyed were reassigned. She was excluded from meetings she used to attend. Then came the calendar changes. Her schedule was adjusted to align with team needs, which meant later hours, less predictability. No one said it was punishment, but no one denied the connection either. The biggest moment came 2 weeks later. Her manager asked to touch base. The meeting was calm, measured. He said there were concerns about her team alignment, about her willingness to adapt. Maya listened. She asked if her performance had declined. He said no. She asked if she'd missed deadlines. He said no. The issue, he explained, was attitude. The conversation ended without resolution. But the message was clear. Reddit had thoughts. One commenter argued, "This is classic retaliation dressed up as professionalism. HR should be involved immediately." Another disagreed, "Management didn't retaliate. They adjusted. You're not entitled to the same perks after changing expectations." A third offered nuance. Both sides failed. The company relied too heavily on one person, and she waited too long to push back. The comments grew longer, more heated. Everyone agreed on one thing. This wasn't about one email anymore. Jurors. This is where the case becomes complicated. Legally, retaliation requires proof, clear cause, clear consequence. And companies rarely put that in writing. Emotionally, though, the shift was obvious. Maya didn't demand a raise. She didn't refuse core duties. She enforced a boundary. But workplaces run on precedent. When someone breaks an unspoken rule, even a harmful one, systems react. Was management protecting efficiency or punishing independence? Was Maya advocating for herself or disrupting a dynamic she'd helped create? There's no villain here, just competing interpretations of responsibility. Reddit loved the what-ifs. What if Maya had enforced boundaries in her first year? Would they have respected them or replaced her? What if she'd escalated through HR instead of replying directly? Would that have protected her or labeled her a problem sooner? What if she'd negotiated rather than refused? Would compromise have changed the outcome? What if she'd said nothing at all? Would burnout have cost her more in the long run? Each scenario leads somewhere different. None are clean. Months later, Maya updated her post. She stayed for a while. The tension never fully eased. Eventually, she started applying elsewhere, quietly, carefully. When she left, her manager thanked her for her contributions. No mention of the boundary, no acknowledgement of the shift, just professionalism. She didn't regret speaking up, but she understood the cost. So, jurors, was enforcing that boundary the right move, even if it changed everything? Should employees protect their limits or adapt to the culture they help shape? And when professionalism becomes pressure, who is actually responsible for the fallout? Internet court is now adjourned, but the verdict is yours. Sound off in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, be sure to hit like and subscribe. It's always appreciated.